You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Trump was incredibly effective at being a truth teller to the Republican Party and finally saying some cathartic truths that many Republican voters had quietly been holding, but no one in their political class had given them a permission structure to say. Most notably, the Iraq war has been a total failure. But other things that he also talked about were the bailouts. There were a number of these key issues, and the Democrats on their own side of the aisle now have a nice laundry list that someone, an enterprising someone, could pick up on. 1, 2, 3. When skies are cloudy and gray, they're only gray for a day. You just wrap your troubles up in dreams, then you dream those troubles away. Until the sunshine peeps through. Well, there's only one thing you can do. You just wrap that trouble up in dreams, then you dream those troubles away. Technically, we shouldn't have to worry about copyright protection on that one either, because that's like a mid-20th century song or something like that. So,
well, I'm worried about someone stealing your performance rights.
Oh, well,
I'm not worried about the 20s people getting ripped off. Who cares?
Okay, yeah. No. The Tin Pan Alley people, I assume, were underpaid for their work, but they were paid at some point.
So I'm talking to listeners. So, of course, not only are you a listener, and of course, you've been on before, to the extent that I do have people from time to time that are like, hey, what happened to Chris Novembrino? I am so glad I get to talk about Quince on My History Can Beat Up Your Politics. I have a pair of blue jeans from them that look better, hold up nicer, and fit better than many of those jeans with the brand names that you know about, especially because some of those key brand names just aren't getting it done these days the way they used to. Everything at Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. Still, even with the great inflation, still Quince is getting it done. Elevate your summer wardrobe. Go to quince.com/myhist for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/MYHIST for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/myhist.
I have actually been getting a little more of that this year, 2026. I've had people kind of reaching out to me and asking if I'm thinking about doing a podcast again. What have I been doing? Because I stopped doing the wrestling show last year as well. So I've been off the air for the longest period of time I've ever been off the air for anyone who's listened to me. Because even when I stopped, took breaks or whatever, I was always doing something else on the air. And I'm not doing anything right now. I'm thinking about circling back. I have been thinking about it. But as we open up with this conversation about the medium, one of the things I do find myself mentally struggling with is that I still have a mindset about how to make the product that is 10 years ago, or maybe even older than that. I might be being generous to myself by saying some of my mindsets are 10 years old. And one of the things I think about, you mentioned, we were talking about the McLaughlin Group and the way that formatted. I don't know that the current media landscape is looking for a deep dive podcast show like I used to do back in the day. There's a lot of these episodes that I'm very proud of, but I found myself thinking about in the relaunch, I don't know if people want an hour-long deep dive on Tulsi Gabbard's relationship with the Indian government. That
there's
anymore.
so much.
Or when they do, they want it on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah, it's like I kind of want it, but not anymore. But I think right there, this is part of the problem. You just mentioned, so she's gone now. So the fluidness of this of the events, it will make any deep dive meaningless because when a president can issue an EO, and the whole world changes, what's the point? So we could talk about student loans and stuff, and I still think that it's important, but
News pacing has also changed. To your point, I mean, I remember, looking back here, going into the Mueller report, a lot of great stuff in there. I think actually a lot of stuff worth revisiting too. Here, not necessarily on this show, but just like in the future, people should actually kind of re-examine some of the connections there that were being discussed by Mueller. But I found myself during that time just racing against the clock every day to get the next excerpt of the Mueller report done. And I eventually had to tap out because I was just getting so hopelessly behind.
right,
After a week,
right.
and the media climate, 20, 25 years ago might ruminate on something like that for a couple of months and you'd have the time to keep getting those episodes out and the engagement around that. Now it's like, man, you almost want
Yeah,
advanced
and
copies of the
then
news, right?
and the result of it is what you're getting in the listener of a lot of different political persuasions is, some form of I don't care. I mean, I don't really care about all this because first of all, it's what happened in the last 2 minutes. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of fungibility about anything mattering too much because in their eyes or what they've seen, like some very different and very amazing things have happened that it sort of betray any kind of old principle or old way that politics worked. And I mean, I'll always say as the history guy, it's not as true as people think. I'm just right now doing Watergate. And specifically, I'm doing like a leftovers, ephemera, extra stuff. And there's a lot of it. There's a lot of things. So if you start peeling back Watergate, you're getting a similar thing where there's a lot of layers that weren't the public. The public story was, the burglars are caught. And then part of the public story is the cover up and then Nixon resigning. Maybe you go as far as the people indicted afterwards. That's the story. Behind that is layers and layers and layers. I was just looking into the cops that arrested those burglars who hadn't talked for a while. A lot of people had took a while to talk, and in that you're getting reasons for the burglary that weren't really they're really nailing down why there was one of the burglars trying to hide a key, and the key was to a certain person in the DNC and had a certain function. And that really shows what the intent was. And this Cuban burglar who couldn't speak English obviously probably wasn't the one
Someone had
calling
to
the
tell him that
shots.
he needed that key, right? Yeah, like
Exactly. Someone had
you
told
would
him that this is
not
the
be able to
mission,
just
and he
pull
was
that off.
trying to be the hero of still executing the mission even after arrested, probably trying to say, like, this is my own personal item, get it in the personal items, get it returned and they all thought they were going to get pardoned or some lawyer was going to come and wash it all away. It's things like that. Another layer that I've recently uncovered is the judge, Sirica. As much as Woodward and Bernstein get a lot of credit must go to this judge he was aggressive. He insisted on a maximum sentencing if people didn't start talking. And I mean it. And also, he would ask questions. So it's very rare for a judge to take over the prosecutor, but they are allowed to do it, particularly in the federal court. They are allowed to do this. Judge doesn't feel like truth is in his courtroom. He can ask questions directly of the witness. And he was taking over for the prosecutor. Prosecutors like, this is some dumb burglary that happened. And, but in any case, that's just two of maybe 25 layers that I have in a recent three-parter coming up that just shows you that even something like that in the past is very complicated. Nixon's very complicated. Johnson's very complicated. So there is a lot.
Well, I think Ford's actions in all of this are very complicated, right? I think, especially
Good point.
when I was younger, coming up, I think I looked at Ford going, we need to pardon and we need to move on for the good of the country so that this doesn't wear on,
Right.
as a bit of a wishy-washy argument, but something ultimately I could tolerate and swallow. And now as I look at that type of argument in the backdrop of more modern scandals, I mean, specifically the Epstein files, which were a key part of this last campaign cycle, Yeah, no. You can't just say we're going to move on for the good of the country. You can actually cause serious harm to the victims and people around it by going, well, that was a very bad thing, but we're also just not going to dwell on it.
Well, that's another one of the onion layers of Watergate is Ford. So Ford, yes, generally has that appearance of not being involved, being an outsider brought in, and it's reasonably true. That is what happened. He was the last person Nixon probably wanted to bring into the presidency. If Nixon actually had a choice, it would have been like John Connolly. He was Haldeman said the boss is in love. He loved having like this Kennedy, former Democrat, former Johnson guy that was on his team, and but so he didn't really like Ford. But Ford was the guy that the 25th Amendment has the House and Senate that have to vote for the VP, and so they weren't going to vote for and just any Republican. They wanted Jerry, who they knew. Um, now, in the early going, even when the tapes come out, Jerry Ford is like, "There's everything on these tapes exonerate the president." He obviously hadn't listened to them, and people said, "Jerry, you can't say this because they're going to find something and be a little more
This is going to look
careful."
really stupid. You have to say something a little more precise than this.
And what occurred, this is an interesting thing that I found. What occurred was not so much that the uh, any particular, they hadn't found the smoking gun yet. It took some time. So it wasn't a particular thing. It was, and even the smoking gun is an overgeneralization of like, there's so much on those tapes that could be used, but that was the one thing that was easy at the time they could grab onto, trying to use this cover up and stuff. But just the tone of Nixon and the way he talked like a mafia boss, the people were so outraged that then Ford had to go with that and say, "Well, I'm very disappointed in these tapes." And then he kind of started doing a lot of travel and stopped visiting like young Republican clubs and women's because at that time the GOP was the women's party. Believe it or not, it was like where they got the 53% or whatever. And so visiting a lot of women's clubs and secondly, to your point, it looked good in the beginning. I've even probably done episodes in the beginning where I said, Ford probably made the right call. One of the things I said, I think back in 2007 when he died was, maybe Nixon, they thought might, let's just say harm himself. Okay. I'll just say it that way. And I think there were conversations through in betweens that, the wife sort of got the message to Ford and his people. I now see that as if it were true, whatever truth it was on the side of being if that occurred, it was
That's
a
on
Nixon
Nixon.
play.
Yeah,
It
right.
was a
Yeah,
Nixon play. It wasn't you get the person help. That's not
yeah,
the
that's not a
way.
disqualifying reason to not
Yeah.
do
He
the
could have
thing.
it any and then the third thing is it's any crimes he might have committed. Now, I understand from Ford's point of view, he wanted to be president, he wanted to get on with things, but any crimes he might have committed, open it up for the entire presidency, no investigation of anything. Couldn't just
Anything.
say, you could have said the Watergate cover up, you are absolved only because you're already been punished, you resigned, and this presidency thing was kind of important to you. Whatever argument you want to make. A fourth point I'd make is there were some conversations between Haig and Ford, very dicey in terms of Ford, in his accounts looks good with it, but they had the conversations. And it is still notable that Ford's top aide and speechwriter, the guy that wrote the Long National Nightmare is Over, that line, he resigned immediately after the pardon. And everything went down for Ford. The American people did make their verdict on it in 76.
They didn't like it, but the unfortunate thing is that that idea and way of management has remained the dominant approach to government. I can think of another example where you see this when Obama gets into office. A lot of people are very upset at George W. Bush and his conduct of the war. And then a lot of people feel like extra legal things have happened during the conduct of the war. And Obama comes out and actually makes a tagline on this saying, we need to look forward, not backwards. by saying we need to look forward, not backwards, it does become, in effect, a blanket pardon, and moves the conversational window such that if you are someone who still wants to dwell on looking back, aren't you just being a negative Nancy?
Crazy because the legislative branch has, as part of legislative powers, a power of investigation. If they're going to enact new legislation, that that can often be based on events that have happened. They need to investigate to do their jobs. So this
Yeah, to
idea,
this point, I would be extremely, much more receptive to a let's not dwell argument if I actually believed that Congress was actively doing oversight of the current president while the president's in office. But that's just not something particularly substantiated by a deep read of history.
now I would say the House of Representatives would be in a mode of they're going to say they're going to say he's doing everything we could possibly do. Why, Chris, would
We could
we,
literally come up with an event, right? Like we could make like a hypothetical scandal here, and I could tell you what both sides are going to say with
right,
extreme reliability.
right.
Like almost down to, wow, Chris, I can't believe that you actually nailed what Mike Johnson said to the sentence. And it's like, dude, that's not because I'm that smart. It's that they are moving in just the most predictable patterns possible.
Yeah, I don't think that a lot of the plan for this presidency, I don't think, and the legislative program, he's not really a legislative program, it's an executive program, and it's based on, actually congressional bills get dicey. So,
Right, which is why he wanted to pass one big, beautiful bill, right? Like the reason he
yeah, the
wanted to do
marketing.
that is not just because of the marketing and the tagline, and the Democrats are, of course, pouncing on that because we're back into campaign season. But to me, I'm looking at this going, yeah, because he knows that he can only get exactly one bill passed, so you might as well make it as big as possible.
All
And then
those
just
things. Gotta say, Inflation Reduction Act, Affordability Act. We all use these things on bills. There's no doubt, but that one's particularly generalist. Big,
yeah.
beautiful bill. And
No, like
also,
I think the Omni bill is kind of the current status of what you can credibly expect to get done in like a presidency right
yeah, I
now,
mean,
because Congress is so ossified that
yeah.
you need all the political capital you have up front in that first year. Hopefully you have both houses of Congress and you can just steamroll your Omni bill through, and then the next 3 years we just go back to standing around.
Yeah, I think that's been present for some time. That's that feature of, first year presidency, get it done. Certainly so in 2025. Although I also think if I am just looking objectively and historically at 2025, huge mistake to go with the Elon Musk thing because it was just a failure right in those crucial. You handed over the guy with the chainsaw, you handed over
He
your
was
three
just killing the
months.
political capital. Yeah. Like, I
But
mean,
I
it's
guess
weird. Yeah.
again, new ways of looking at things for new tactics. If you're on that side of things, what you're going to say is,
He was a
yeah, but
distraction tactic.
not just distraction of public, a good publicity for President Trump. It's like, well, it's this guy, not me. There's a lot of that, or he could counterman when he wants to. If something goes too harsh, he
He
can
counter
say,
programs.
roll it back. And he eventually did. Even, oh, well, Elon's got to get back to the private sector. Never said that before. But anyway,
But like meanwhile, as he's letting the Doge show play out, right? You have all of this construction of the big beautiful bill, and that's not getting any media time, or getting very,
right.
very limited amounts of media time. And I think as I look back, on my podcasting career and stuff, where does this connect back to? Lessons learned from the Affordable Care Act's passage. Obama
Right.
got in and he did the stimulus bill, which hurt him political capital wise, and then he went into the Affordable Care Act, and that became the center focus of all of the media circus. Fox, MSNBC, CNN, all of them. Everyone's talking wall to wall, debating the Affordable Care Act. And that's ultimately not good for a bill,
Well, it was
right?
also a
Like, it's
second year
better to
bill,
have it a
Bill.
submarine, and it's a
Yes, a
second year bill,
second
right?
year bill is terrible. I mean,
Getting us back to the
he's
Omni
lucky
bill
he
as
got
the
it
new
passed.
model, right? Like
Yeah.
that the new model, again, teachable lesson from the Affordable Care Act. Omni bill, first year, all guns a-blazing. You just fire every legislative bullet you've got
But
to
this
get
is
your
not,
Omni
with
bill.
two things, though. I think two things I have to go back to is that, again, this talk is great. And in 2014, we could have had it, right? There is a little bit more to say now because you're seeing new tactics and we have to be aware of it. Like, if you're on that side of things, like what I was going to say about Doge is that, um, okay, as me looking at politics over so many decades or whatever, it's a traditional presidential, it's just a program that didn't work. It's kind of like the Clinton reorganizing the government, although that
Well, it's
arguably on
making a
paper had more.
stupid version of the GAO, right? Like, we actually already have a government bureau that
Yeah,
is supposed to find efficiency. It's just that Congress routinely does not listen to any of its suggestions.
right. It doesn't listen. And so this is also a body that wasn't making suggestions. It's just actually telling people you leave. Now,
It's a dumbed down version of the GAO.
but what they would argue, okay, if I had somebody on here, what they would say is, well, we scared the heck out of the federal government that's there. And now when Trump, if when an EO is issued, the people that are left are afraid for the job or whatever. They're not going to say it that way. They would say it more like they have
Oh yeah,
reoriented their
no.
priorities to what President Trump needs to do for the American people. And then he needs to work fast because he's changing. When you're changing something, Chris, it's different from when you're keeping things the same and just
Same.
adding
Right, yeah.
5% more like the people did for so many years, including some Republicans, which the current president opposes in many cases. Since he's transforming a radical change that the American people in the overwhelming mandate voted for, therefore we needed this. No, but the reality is, even if you're more cynical about it and you're really looking at politics from their point of view, it it first of all took out, okay, what's a huge group of Democratic, like, let's say, donors, influential people? This is government workers. I mean, no doubt, because most of those government service unions are going to be supporting Democratic candidates. Uh, Scared the bejesus out of them. A lot of them lost their jobs, lost their financial ability. That's a big source of donors, a big source of support. So you did that. You you cripple some of the programs that you don't like anyway. So, and if something's good, we'll do it in Oklahoma or Arkansas. These are all what the not only I'm not only giving the arguments, but I'm also giving, like, to some extent, the real political effect of it. So
You
Doge
know,
was a failure in terms of this goofy guy with a chainsaw, is now banished from DC, but and nobody's seen any savings really. But there is this, oh, we put the fear of God into those bureaucrats, and now they'll do what our president wants factor, that it makes things different. And with Big Beautiful Bill, and this is going to make it different from another president in the future that probably won't be able to pull it off. The next Democrat that barely gets in, if it happens, like if a Newsom or if a Shapiro or a um, the guy from Kentucky or one of the people that will appear from nowhere and win the Nevada caucus and be the person we're talking about, if they barely get in with 51%, they're not going to be able to have this kind of control over the Democratic caucus the way Trump can put you on the line with BBB and say, this is really a vote about me. You're either
yes,
with me or
this is
against
true.
me. And you really
So
don't have that. You have Trump. I'd have to go back to, I mean, Clinton could do it with like two Congress people in a margin, like of when he's already lost 27 of them, including his own Arkansas guy. And he finally gets, uh, a woman from Pennsylvania to don't ruin my presidency, please. That's very different from BBB, where it's like, you'd better vote for this or he's coming and knocking in the
well,
primary.
yeah, and he'll actually come in a muscular way. I want to circle
We
back
don't
to the
really
Democrats
have,
here in a second, but
yeah.
real quickly on the Doge thing.
Yeah.
A guest that I had on the show, one of my favorite guests, and he, like, honestly, he became a friend through appearances on the show and stuff. Matt Lewis. I think a lot about his book, Too Dumb to Fail, which, like, in preparation for the interview, I read in its entirety and took pretty copious notes on. No, I think the thesis is really important. And
I like him. We had him on.
yeah, and this next point, like, I don't want to, like, sound like I'm being cheeky or funny or anything, because I'm being as completely serious as like my love for my cats here. One of the things that has been very troubling to me, especially in the last 18 months, but like it's been a general trend here, is turning on the news and seeing that people who are in control of making very important decisions that impact my life are, again, not trying to be funny here, I'm just putting it as cleanly as I can put it, are substantially more stupid than I am. That Kash Patel is at least as bad of an FBI director as I would be, or that, like, Bobby Kennedy Jr. is at least as bad at his job at DHS as I would be. And that has been very troubling. And I look at the Doge thing, and one of the things that I think Americans, especially because this is esoteric and this would be like third tier stuff, need to be concerned about, though, is that we've created a chilling effect in government with Doge culture and this idea of let's purge the wicked bureaucrats, that we are not going to be able to hire good people to do those jobs in the future because, like, if let's suppose I'm very good at, I don't know, something nuclear. You can give me a nuclear job. Why not? That sounds fun. And I'm very good at nuclear stuff. Why would I want to go into the government sector and have 3 stable years at my job, and then on year 4, all of a sudden I'm worried that the new head of my agency, who is a former reality television star who believes in healing crystals or something, is going to fire me? Why would I subject me and my family to that? And that's a very real thing. Like, I mean, I'm, again, not trying to be funny, but the level of these people being put at these administrative positions, I would submit basically kind of categorically, if you're listening to My History Can Beat Up Your Politics, you're probably at least as qualified as one of the people you have seen staff one of these major administrative state jobs. And I'm not saying you do a good job at it. I mean, you need to look at someone like a Kash Patel or a Pam Bondi or whoever and go like, yo, I don't think that they're actually even, it's not a politics thing. These people are just simply not at a level of muster.
Yeah, no, and I think that in some cases, everyone talks about the Fox News thing. He's putting on people from TV and stuff. But, I mean, some part of a federal agency, if you're really the head of a federal agency, I don't want you in the reactor necessarily. You're the spokesperson. But even there, I question whether some of these choices are the best people to even be in that role.
Let's say I'm a great doctor. Do I want to be working for Dr. Oz? I went and did, right. Like I did like an extensive study on like liver health or whatever. And here comes this guy who's talking about supplements on TV and I'm working under him.
Well,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, there's a whole issue there. But really critically to those choices, if you look at Gabbard and you look at Kennedy Jr. and Kennedy Jr. is still there. We're now into 2 year. We're now into second year. So it wasn't a fluke. Whereas Gabbard, you could argue he put her in. But in any case, there was
I think Bobby Kennedy has nowhere else to go, Bruce. If I could be completely why he hasn't been fired, and he certainly has no incentive to quit because he's got nothing else going on.
No, this will be it. But he got. I do note that even not running, even endorsing Trump, he got 700,000 votes in the 2024 election. And I think this is important for the point I'm about to make, is that I saw an ad in 2024 that I was amazed by. I didn't expect to see. And it had the Trump team. The Trump team was Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, Bobby Kennedy Jr., and Elon, the Trump team. And it actually didn't have Vance in it. And this particular ad. And I thought, see, that is a lot of the explanation for what was an extremely narrow vote. That, and I don't think Kamala is a very good politician, nor
Not a
was a
good
great debater.
politician. I continue to look back at that race and go, you could have almost substituted in any candidate, and it would have been very impossible for them to pick
I would have
up.
done Biden in the Rose Garden, but
Yeah, no,
that's just
like it would have
me.
been really, really hard to pick
I
up
lost
in
that
the
battle.
late June after Biden sort of forced the issue
Right.
that far along. I mean, I think Biden's inability to bow away gracefully more or less conscripted whoever had to pick up the slack after him to really have just the most uphill slog. I don't think Bernie Sanders could have won. I don't think AOC could have won. I basically do believe. I think Kamala is a very weak candidate. And to be very clear, I've always said that on the show. I think I said that her political masterstroke, and she should get credit for this, is going from being a loser tier candidate in the 2020 primaries, dropping out early, realizing it wasn't going to happen, and throwing her lot in with Biden because that got her to the vice presidency.
Well, everybody
and she had no
did.
chance of winning a single. Everyone did, but she was one of the first people to endorse Biden.
Oh yeah, and I think you have to, because I think in any race, any traditional race, if you don't come in at the right time, you're actually going to be looked on with disfavor. And Joe Biden might be a little different in those calcs, but I noticed that a bunch of them all kind of quit in the same week. It was the COVID primary, so it's a little different.
There was consolidation and stuff, but yeah, Kamala, if I recall correctly, was like the first to jump in that bunch.
And she had really attacked Biden, maybe next to Sanders, had attacked Biden the hardest, and with an argument that if the election had been tougher, you would have been able to use it like a Reagan-Bush voodoo economics, where it was like she had said some things that were nasty. Although I do like that Biden, a smart campaign manager on Biden's team, pointed out that she was attacking him on busing in the 1970s in his position. He said, well, actually, just go ask Senator Harris what would she do if there was a busing program today in California right now. And her position was exactly the same as Joe Biden in the 1970s. No forced busing.
You just wrap that trouble up in dreams, then you dream those troubles away.
24 election, it's not, yes, it's about, obviously that's the Biden election. No doubt in my mind, you get a narrow Biden win if he was healthy, all of that. First of all, I don't think it's a great atmosphere for Democrats.
No,
I
think if he could have stayed healthy enough to make those debates a true wash, and also somehow kind of like Trump, where he just never exhibited the fogginess on the debate stage. We've seen him be foggy in other places, but not on the debate stage. Not in combat, Yeah, not in combat. If they could have somehow gotten him through that, I think, yes, he limps to re-election. I mean, it's close, it's ugly, it's a schmoz, and he's got no political capital coming out of it.
If Biden was healthy, it would have been easy, in my opinion. That really was the disruption and the ticket, confused voters. And
his presidency team was kind of notably, at least in my estimations, bad at messaging. Afghanistan, a disaster war. It was an absolute boondoggle. And somehow that turned into a cudgel against him, and he's the guy who withdrew and pulled out of it. I mean, anyone who's better at messaging, and certainly if Trump had done this, Trump would be sitting there going I ended the war. That was the dumbest war, and I ended it. No, so to go to the Democrats, their strategy and stuff. I was actually thinking about one of my earlier appearances on the show here, and something I had said, that the Democrats ultimately are going to need someone who can function like Trump did in the first primaries back in 2015, by which I mean specifically, to put a fine point on this, Trump was incredibly effective at being a truth teller to the Republican Party and finally saying some cathartic truths that many Republican voters had quietly been holding, but no one in their political class had given them a permission structure to say. Most notably, the Iraq war has been a total failure. But other things that he also talked about were the bailouts. There were a number of these key issues, and the Democrats on their own side of the aisle now have a nice laundry list that an enterprising someone could pick up on. Anything from January 6th was in fact actually a domestic terrorist attack by any standard definition of what domestic terrorism is in terms of intention and action. We could talk about the idea that 80 years old and above has been routinely demonstrated by members of both parties to be a point where your ability to function at a high level as a senator is severely hindered, whether we're talking about Dianne Feinstein or Chuck Grassley or Mitch McConnell. I mean, we keep seeing it time and time again. I'm not even going to get into the mysterious disappearing congressman right now, Tom Keene, but there needs to be a lot more accountability in terms of functionality that is going on up there in Washington, D.C. I mean, we could get into someone who actually on the Democratic side has the courage to say that Joe Biden should have stepped aside. Not, again, a radical statement, not like a bold claim, but would be bold coming from a Democrat. We could keep going here. We could talk about the Supreme Court. We could talk about further accountability on the Epstein files. But there is, in my mind, a lane for a forceful liberal voice to come in and basically kind of bully the Democrats. In a way, they're very easy to be bullied because they're all pretty weak-willed. This is also their big problem. It's like their Achilles heel. If a bully came in and started bullying them, they'd be easily bullied. It's just they don't dispositionally allow for bullies to come in.
No, I get what you're saying, and it's like and Mandami will not be able to be able to run for president, but you get that feeling that there's a person that from the left would be able to tell them what in Democratic primaries, of course, and get that BBB effect that I was talking about.
He's effective. Like that non-smile in the photos with Trump is really effective messaging that other Democrats don't even do. Like whenever Mamdani is with Trump, he just doesn't really smile. Whereas you get a Chuck Schumer or a Hakeem Jeffries or whatever, and Trump can't even remember Hakeem Jeffries' name, and Hakeem's like, smiling for him. But yeah, like Mamdani won't. Stuff like that.
Well, I think
we read that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, at least as a left-leaning voter, I see that stuff. I see what it means.
I think it's messaging. I also think he's just telegraphing a natural feeling because why did Trump invite him? Because Mondami hits him where he hurts. Here's the first guy that gets pumped. Now, he doesn't agree with the politics, thinks he's a socialist, crazy, all this stuff. Here's the first guy that's getting that. When he talks, there's the news media. The New York Post hates him, but get what? They have him on the cover every day. The New York Post blamed him for the Mets playing badly because he met Mr. Baseball, Mr. Met.
He met Mr. Met.
He touched him, and then it's the Mondami curse. So every day now he's realizing what Trump has executed well, that it don't matter if you're attacking me or not. You already called me a socialist when I started running. You called me a socialist in the primaries. You called me a communist in the general. Now I'm mayor of New York City. You're going to keep calling me that. And as things happen, the guys may be surprised that a more like candidate like a de Blasio who's going to say I'm not a socialist, I'm not a communist or whatever, will be a victim of those attacks. Whereas, so I think Trump realized, I don't want to say a kinship, but this is something I have to cover here. This is something I have to take care of. This is something I have to at least keep close because this guy gets press.
I do think it's kinship. I think you're right in the sense of this guy gets it. Like, Trump looks at Mamdani and goes, oh, this guy actually gets how the game is played. Whereas he looks at a lot of his other opponents up on Capitol Hill and goes, these guys are playing like a really old style of basketball. Like they're playing 1950s basketball in a 3-point league.
Yeah, no, but now to be clear, and let me just build on this a bit that we've established, by no means the playground that Trump is playing in is much, much larger. He's figured out a way to win Wisconsin. Mandami's not going to give you In fact, he's the reverse of that. But but New York City, although it's big, he makes a great point that one out of every 300 kids goes
Have
to
we
school in
seen
New York City.
Mamdani do out of state events yet for other
Not,
politicians? No, because
uh,
I'd be interested to see if he can actually get a little Obama energy in terms of live speaking. Because
well,
I
I think
could
you're going to
see
see
him.
it in the 2028 coming up. I don't know if you're going to
Absolutely.
see
No,
it
I
in
could see him
midterms.
actually really helping candidates in some
Yeah.
of these other states. Because I think the other trick, going back to new plays or whatever, 1950s basketball versus three-point basketball, Trump has realized there's actually a meaningful difference between honesty and authenticity. And you can get away with a lot of lying so long as you actually seem like your authentic self. And
Right.
one of the big problems, especially for Kamala Harris, is an absolute inability to seem like
No,
her
those
authentic
few
self.
seconds where you're thinking about what to say, you've lost.
You've
And
already
that is
lost.
the new,
You're
there's a
losing
couple of,
votes. You're hemorrhaging votes by the
you're
millisecond. I
having
completely agree.
I was looking at this Instagram site that I go on. And the guy's generally GOP leaning and look, I mean, he was right in 2024, so what am I going to say? But he had a thing about that Andy Beshear should be the Democrats' nominee, which would be a typical GOP thing to say. I know he has his fans and stuff, but here's it. And he had all this list of reasons, and then he had why Gavin Newsom shouldn't be the nominee. And look, I was shaking my head to every reason why he shouldn't be the nominee. It was like this scandal, that scandal, he did this.
Oh yeah, no, no.
This thing,
He's not
California,
my
blah, blah, blah,
guy.
blah. But
Decidedly not my guy.
but I'll tell you this, I raised one point in that discussion. I said, you've said a lot of stuff, but my understanding is that Andy Beshear doesn't say much. And I was on a town council in Jersey, like we had a guy, and I'm like, that guy don't say much. And he's not going to be
You're not
around
going to
too
win
long.
like that.
Yeah.
That's.
And
I'm just
right
really
now
of that
in this
opinion.
atmosphere, like what we're doing, this is what the presidential candidates, like it or not, will have to do. I mean, so when you look at what I call like verbal acuity, let's say, Newsom can handle it. You may not like the content, you may not like the guy, but somebody's going to have to fill those 59 minutes.
He can go on to like a Joe Rogan show and vamp mindlessly and do the 3-hour tour. And
it's
like that is something that a lot of other Democratic politicians would actually meaningfully struggle with. Like Chuck Schumer going on the Joe Rogan Experience. Never mind worst radio content, like doom podcast for me. Oh my God. But like, yeah, you Chuck Schumer, you name some other Democratic politicians. 3 hours? Could you imagine spending 3 hours just with Joe Rogan and that other Democrat? Oh, that'd be rough. I mean, that would really be rough.
But it's
and there's a
to
lot of
what you're
Republicans with that
talking
same
about.
problem.
It's to what you're talking about. That is Trump's skill, which is, I don't care if you disagree with me, whatever. I'm authentic in my way. And if you want to say I lie all the time, I'm authentic in that's how I represent. Here, I'll give the best, most positive way of describing a person. See, I can make it on the floor of Parliament where you're not allowed to call people liars or you get thrown out. He's got the most authentic way of representing the reality he perceives that he wants to tell you about. And you believe it.
It's real to him.
That he believes it.
Yeah, it's real to him.
And other people, they're taking those six. I mean, Kamala Harris is one of them. I kind of put Shapiro in this, although I think he has moments too. I think everybody's learning a little. But really what you have to do is kind of put it all out there and take the licks. And people are afraid to do that. It's hard.
This is very weird, and like he's not necessarily aligned with my politics like that, but I've always felt, especially watching that initial primary run, Buttigieg theoretically would actually understand how to play this game. He just keeps taking the wrong advice because he is cheeky and he is pithy and he can be sarcastic and punchy. And there are a lot of people who keep saying, "Well, no, you've got to be nice. Well, no, you've got to be nice. Remember, we gotta try to win the hearts and minds on the other
I
side
mean,
stuff." And
presidential.
and I'm so firmly of the opinion, no, you don't have to win the hearts and minds on the other side. That's not what Trump was thinking. You
Right.
need to just be punchy and authentic and speak your truth, whatever that is.
Yeah, you're right in this way. Like, here's the thing. It's something in between. We're not talking about converting. I don't think in most cases. It's a turnout game. And that's what the authenticity is related to. So like I don't think too often a Buttigieg, I know he goes on Fox News a lot,
Is
right?
there a good election where the conversion narrative really tracks? Like I'm thinking, I was like thinking like
What do
maybe
you
like
mean?
Reagan.
Yeah, Reagan, Clinton,
Yeah, right. But
Carter.
we have
Carter
to
got
go
a ton of
back.
Republicans.
At this point, we have to go back 30, 35 years at least, right?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, of
Yeah,
course,
okay.
yeah, it's not as much. 2004 ended, 2004 started that turnout game. I guess
Right.
Obama a little,
Yeah,
but
like
it kind
Obama
of
a
got
little,
handed
sure.
to him. If there's a recession, let's take out of the equation if there's a recession during the election year. The other
And
party's going
super
to win.
unpopular. Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's a lot. Yeah,
That's
like
not what we're
perfect
talking about.
storm. No, I know, right? So
We're talking
like,
about a
I'm
jump
thinking.
ball. Vance will. I don't think Vance is a great candidate. I'm not even
No,
entirely
because
sure
you keep
Trump's going to
hearing
want
on
Vance.
TV this idea of changing hearts and minds, and like it keeps ringing really false to me. But it's great having you here because I'm like, I find myself going, has that really been a legit strategy that's viable
I
in
think
my
it has,
lifetime?
but
I'm
here's the
40.
way I would say it. Here's the way I would say
It
it.
would be like the
You
'88
think it's
election, right?
conversion, but the people are coming to you.
Right.
People are coming to you. You're not bringing, people are coming to you. So Al Rice and Jack Trout, these two marketing guys that had some great books, Marketing Warfare, back in the 90s, 80s, 90s, that I like, and I really haven't seen things better. And they always said these CEOs would be in meetings and say like, we want to position ourselves as the leader in this. And it's like, you don't position. You are positioned. What do you have? What are you? How to get focus groups? Let's see what people say about you, and you're there. So to some extent, unless you're going to change like actions you're taking and ways you authentically are.
Expedia and Visit Scotland invite you to come step into centuries of history that await in Scotland. Castles steeped in legend walk along cobblestone streets. Come share the warmth of stories passed down through generations. This is a place with a past that is fully present today and all yours to explore. Plan your Scottish escape today at expedia.com/visit Scotland.
Study and play come together on a Windows 11 PC. And for a limited time, college students get the best of both worlds. Get the Unreal College Deal. Everything you need to study and play with select Windows 11 PCs. Eligible students get a year of Microsoft 365 Premium and a year of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with a custom color Xbox wireless controller. Learn more at windows.com/student offer. While supplies last. Ends June 30th. Terms at aka.ms/collegepc.
There's some people that maybe could bring out a little more that they
Yeah, but
authentically have.
lean into what you are
Yes.
is firmly like
And some
in a
people
way,
are not going to be president. I'm sorry to say.
you just wrap that trouble up in dreams. Then you dream those troubles away. Also true, right? Like, there's some people who are just naturally wired to be like, a critter of Congress, right? What they
course.
actually are great at is being like a firebrand in Congress and passing a bill, getting in a committee and being a
Or
firebrand
being
on a
a
committee.
senator, like everyone knocks on Lindsey Graham, and they should generally, but for the job description, he's like Al D'Amato used to be in New York. A senator must be outraged all the time.
And he hyper leverages his position, like he
Hyper.
is way over leveraged out of the hundred. So like I mean,
Yeah, they're getting.
he
They're
has a
getting,
ton of stroke.
Yeah, oh, no doubt, no doubt. I mean, certain people are for that job. Running for president, I think it's a lot of narrow window of opportunity. Come on, Obama was a state senator. Talk about narrow window of opportunity. A senator for 2 years, state senator for a decade before that. Nobody would have
You
even.
just don't want to hang around too long. And that's definitely another thing for me. As I've stepped away, I used to say it on the air, and I feel even more vindicated. Whether you're talking about a Tulsi Gabbard, whether you are talking about a Pete Buttigieg, whether you're talking about an AOC, three completely different types of politicians, all of them, in my estimations, let their political capital trail on just a smidge too long. Even Liz Warren, I think she let her stuff trail on just a smidge too long. I think it would have been a rough slog in 2016 or whatever, but
No,
you
rough.
want, yeah, you want to be taking advantage. In this case, I would just argue the window was just not there for her then, right? But
Done.
yeah, I would argue Sanders. You when the window's open, you just got to go for it, and you have to go for it with kind of maximal aggression because I don't think playing for tomorrow, at least on the Democratic side, works out. I think
No, you can't
even
wait
on the
5 more
Republican
years.
side.
No.
I think there are a lot of people thinking like a Ron DeSantis, oh, I'm going to get it. But what happened to Ron in 2024? To do Ron, to do nothing. Right? Yeah,
So his
he's
book is in
hoping
the
again in 20.
library in the back, and they ordered 2 copies of it. I doubt anybody takes it out. I mean, you're right. You can't wait. That's actually something to think about when we talk Newsom, because he would be in that spot if his opportunity might have been to make a hard, aggressive run once Biden was seen as weak, but he
Biden's more
chose loyalty.
tailor-made for his brand of politics, right? Like the anti-gerontocracy, competency, not necessarily a hard policy position, because that's not Newsom's strength as a politician. Taking down Biden was actually a perfect vehicle for a guy like Gavin Newsom.
Everyone talks about California, but sometimes you have to. There's a gravitas that comes from you're from a big state. Like your decisions matter. Your statements matter. It was tough for Clinton coming up from Arkansas. He had some other national groups that he was part of, but you notice it took him. He didn't run in '88. Everyone was looking for New York, like Cuomo at first, and if Cuomo entering a race, he would have been the heavy. Newsom will be the heavy in this race. It doesn't mean as much as it did in, say, a 1988 or 1992. It could even be a strike against you. But I tend to believe it is what puts you in the game. And then he has this verbal acuity that he's going to be at these debates, able to talk, these podcasts, it's not just Rogan anymore. There's thousands of them. It's the whole world. So you're going to be hearing a lot, and other people are going to sound more rehearsed. That does not by any mean.
No, if anything, yes.
If anything, it's going to be a guy we don't know of. We don't know of yet that's going to appear in 2028. Now, the other thing to say is that the rule of thumb generally for me in times is look in the midterm. So who is influential in getting seats turned in 2026 is a person to look out for in the next election. Now, but like a lot of rules, we could be out of that zone and
right. And I'd want to see how that plays out. Because obviously Talarico's getting a lot of buzz, but I'm always like, guys, I remember a guy named Beto O'Rourke who was supposed to be the future of things, and things definitely flamed out on that.
Texas, you got the problem. I'll tell you the thing is, I tell people to squint. So my old thing on core, I'm like, squint. Look at that county map and squint, and it's like I'm still not seeing enough blue. I'm not seeing enough blue. Even if you adjust it for population, the count. I'm not just saying counties, but here's the thing. Even if you go depth of vote within the counties, I'm still seeing a lot of. Generally, I'm seeing a lot of red. It's the one large state that still has enough rural areas to outvote cities.
Yeah, when the cities are blue, they're not dark blue either.
Well, let's just call Harris County Harris County. It is a annexed city. Houston is an annexed city. It is not the original. The downtown city will vote, and you have all that problems getting outvote in those type of areas, but they will vote one way. But the rest of Harris is a battleground. And there's lots of Trump supporters there. So I mean that's going to be still in all. Something's missing for me in that Texas equation, and I think it's just that Harris County maybe a little, What's a friendly way of saying it? Lack of enthusiasm among voters. Another person might say suppression. Not voting enough for the population.
No, right, yeah. The turnout remains an issue, and a lot of that,
If
at least in
Houston
my,
came out to vote,
that could move
first of all,
things.
you have to deal with that there's a lot of Trump supporters in Houston, so that you got to deal with that. It's not like a Philadelphia, okay? It's
That's
not
right.
like
That's what I say. It's blue. It's not dark blue.
But
Yeah,
that
like we're not
downtown
talking like
portion,
80
the
20.
eastern part of Houston, the eastern, if you're talking there, if you treated that like a Philadelphia and you got the vote out in great numbers, Texas would never be red again. It'll become like Colorado, where Denver just controls 5 counties, control everything. What's happened
And
is
that's
because
actually why it's
Harris,
been very important to shut down polling stations in Harris
of
County.
course,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and like I mean, when you see that in these election cycles, and that has been a recurring theme in multiple election cycles
Mhm.
now, that is not an accident, and a serious campaign focus is being put on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, Democrats turning Texas is not, what's the best way to say this? It's kind of like the 2000 election when they were talking about Florida for Gore. It's like it shouldn't be the thing everything's hanging on for them. It should be a lot easier just to go get Arizona and Georgia and Pennsylvania. But I guess if you have to do it,
But also, if like that was your strategy, you would need to like literally as a national party go all in on turning Texas. Like your strategy, as an expatriate from Texas, their strategy would be dramatically different than what it was my entire time living in Texas, where they would just kind of run candidates and, if they can get some
yeah.
wins, they can get some wins. You would have national figures like Obama and stuff like that in Texas every other week or whatever.
Yeah, and I always say, you've got those celebrities. Why do I see them in a Met Gala in New York? Why do I see them in a fundraiser in LA? If you've got celebrities, that's the one thing your party has, and I think they're increasingly becoming a detriment with the stupid
Yes,
things they
you
say
would
and
have to be the
Hollyweird. And
right yeah, you would have to be the right type of celebrity, and yes,
but
I
when
mean,
that
yeah.
celebrity, even a questionable one, all right, even if it's one of the weird ones that would get laughed at when they say something in Hollywood, when they come to Harris County or they come to, even better, come to Jones County, now you've got something. Oh wow, now
Right. I
use
mean,
the
it's so
assets you have, but you know
I
what? They
mean, if
don't
I'm
pay
trying to
me.
like
I'm not.
turn, no, if I'm trying to turn things, right? Like, and I'm the Democratic Party, I'm like, dude, why are we not basically throwing like free concerts out in Texas all the time? Right? All these musicians are liberal leaning. We can get a band, we can get a celebrity appearance, and we can have a politician. Basically, like, oh, here's Tom Hanks, the Foo Fighters, and Barack Obama. And you're going to easily turn out 15,000 at any major sporting stadium in a metropolitan in
Yeah.
Texas.
And they
No
do it.
problem.
They do it in swing states. It's been done in
Right.
Ohio.
But if Texas
But
was really your linchpin to your battleground
yeah,
strategy, wouldn't you be doing things like that?
I think they're going to be looking at. I mean, it's far away for the presidential, but they're going to be looking at Pennsylvania again, getting that back. They're going to be looking at
I mean, that's the other
Wisconsin.
thing. Is
Should be
they take
easier.
4 years off, right? I mean, if you're trying to move the needle in some of these states, you kind of have to keep pushing.
Iowa to me
keep
is
pushing the envelope.
I'll always be, and I have relative, or I should say ancestors in Iowa, as well as relatives that I don't really know. Um, what a tragedy to me for a party, a disappointment that a party would write them off and not have a caucus there anymore when it's the thing they get excited about. And just because I get it, like, oh, Iowa shouldn't be first. It's like, well, now you've lost that extra 3 to 5 points you get out of a great organizing effort in the beginning of the year that brings you down. And Iowa's a state that is achievable. I think
The
they will
Iowa
find in the
decision
midterm
wouldn't
they're going
bother
to.
me as much if they had came up with a better primary system in lieu of it. Like if the
Well,
system, if I thought their
that
proposed
doesn't.
changes were like a meaningful improvement from
Yeah,
where
the
they were.
problem with primaries is this. I covered this in the episode about 1988 with Gephardt, where it was like Gephardt was winning these places that had caucuses and stuff, and so was Jesse Jackson, you know. But when it came to primaries, it's like the dimension of space. Like, so when it came time for Super Tuesday, it's like, oh, there's a Super Tuesday in the entire South. Like, oh, well, where are you actually going to go? And you could try to go to Florida, you can go to Texas, whatever. When you have a primary in an entire state, it's not the same as a caucus, which a caucus is a very grassroots event. And by the way, we're not talking about. I should qualify. We're not talking about like the Alaska caucus where you have it in the Anchorage Hilton and there's,
Yeah, there's like
200
15 people. Yeah, right.
that's different. Iowa was never like that. Iowa had local people. Those are your future voters.
It was kind of a cultural thing out there. Yeah.
I'm telling you, maybe you don't get it, but I'll die on that hill. I mean, I think
No, for sure. Although I feel like I'm almost obligated to at least pitch. Well, Chris, what would be your proposed primary system or whatever? And
Chris, what would be your proposed system?
Like, so real simply here, I'd break the states into like 4 quarters, right? Like, and not necessarily even geographically, although that might actually be easier from a campaign standpoint. And I would just rotate which quartile goes first each time, and I'd probably break out those primaries over 2 weeks. So you'd have in the first 2-week period 13 primaries, the next 2-week period 12 primaries, 13 primaries, 12 primaries, and then rotate it around. So no one state has their thumb definitively on the scale. Like the thing that I'm meaning,
it's like the Olympics or the World Cup.
I'm just sick of like, how will this candidate do in New Hampshire as an actual vetting question? Because if you really think about like the president in the context of the world, really New Hampshire, don't get me wrong, I'm from Massachusetts, much love to New Hampshire, cool state. But like, I just don't think any one state should have that much voice. It should be a quarter of the country, and we rotate it around. Because what we're really trying to do is find someone who represents the country, not Iowa, then New Hampshire, then the nuances of South Carolina, and can they connect with James Clyburn?
I get it. I mean, we are giving.
He traumatized me, Bruce. James Clyburn hurt me.
Yeah, no, we are giving the 2 arguments. Although I would argue in 2020 you saw that South Carolina kind of picked up that effect without being first, but and because I actually think that it was coming around because it self-corrects, because New Hampshire actually Iowa was a correction on New Hampshire. So the Iowa caucus was always there, but not as important till like 72 with McGovern, and then it was like, hey, not everything is New Hampshire. So let's look at
it was rebalancing, but it's still like balancing the nuances of the country on Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. If we were all just sitting in a vacuum, is so not what anyone would come up with as their, this would be a good election system.
Right, but the trouble is, any other state you start to get into. I mean, there are some other small states that are just as non-representative, say, that you could pick. We could pick Vermont.
Hence my proposition of quartiles.
Because I feel like in Idaho, but
it's impossible. What I'm saying is it's impossible to assume that any one state's going to perpetually serve as representation.
Yeah, but I think it was self-correcting.
Florida, which was once a swing state.
I think it was self-correcting. Like, you weren't getting the winners of Iowa necessarily to go forward unless they truly were the best candidates. But in a big state like California or New York or what have you, a primary, they're not really testing that candidate of how they would do in a national campaign. It's one big state, and they have an election, probably go to TV studios or get the job done in the bigger city within the state. Whereas these smaller, the Iowa and New Hampshire, I think the one aspect is the traditional that it forced the candidates to be to get their training wheels on and such. Gave an opportunity for an underdog, although it was always that was always a tough. That was always the lottery. I mean, not every Jimmy Carter's one example. But then the other thing that I think is being missed is that for the parties in this very important swing state of Iowa. George Bush won it, but Clinton won it too. I believe Obama won both times. I mean, it's winnable.
He did manage to win Iowa. Yeah, I think that's the last time it was winnable. But
first of all, I know this from my relative. I went to go see my ancestors' houses, I think in between the time we last talked. I was over in Burlington, and I didn't see an ear of corn, my friend. I mean, I did not see an ear of corn. A lot of
But are
cities.
like their cities' populations increasing or declining? Because I could totally envision a scenario where like Des Moines and a number of those Iowa metros are kind of on a backdraw.
Well, I think a lot of states are declining in the Midwest. I mean, that's just a general overall trend. Des Moines
No, no, for
has,
sure. I'm just saying that those are your blue strongholds.
of course, well, Iowa was a railroad town, so we think like corn or things like that, and obviously it's agricultural. But what I actually have discovered researching even the 88 primaries is that there's only about 10 or 15% of people employed in agriculture. There's actually a big railroad, insurance, all the normal things that you see, the banking, the telemarketing, the insurance is big, commodities that go around the agricultural. That's Des Moines. Des Moines was a railroad making, railroad junction town. So no, these aren't huge, but if you're in the state of Iowa, that can turn an election. That and a few other things can turn an election. And Democrats, when they won Iowa, were winning Polk County, and then you're winning the Mississippi counties. Now, the Mississippi counties vote like, in a lot of cases, like Illinois does. To some degrees, they'll be more rural or less. Burlington is part of Des Moines County, not Des Moines City. Very two different edges of the state. Was blue collar factories. In fact, they're living that dream or nightmare of the Rust Belt, or even up to recently, where factories that are now only 100 employees are starting that level of factories starting to close. And no, there's been no increase in manufacturing in either of the Trump presidencies there. But the way they vote, I mean, I think Des Moines County voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016 and voted for Trump in 2020. So these are areas that could be taken back with some effort. And I have to believe that some of it is like, hey, you didn't do the caucus, so Sam didn't get out in the beginning of the year and meet his friends and have pie. And then when it came time and it turned into an election about telephone calls and TV ads, he didn't come out.
Yeah.
That's Iowa to me. So still,
Yeah. No, 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 for sure, for sure. I mean, it's just
because you've lost Ohio. I mean, Ohio has lost for Democrats. So I think Texas
no, I
turned
agree. No,
because
and
Ohio
like
won.
I'm not even hypothetically against like the Democrats making a push on the Southwest doing Texas. My point with that earlier was much more, well, you would be doing it a much more effort driven way and a much more thoughtful and mindful way if that's what you were actually doing. And you certainly don't want to just wave the white flag in other places and not have a strategy going ahead. As a Democratic voter,
I mean, what you're really doing
that's the struggle.
is probably
It's like, what is
Dallas.
the strategy?
So Biden, if I read a statistic that if you took what Biden did in Central Texas, he was up 5% from Hillary Clinton in Central Texas. If the next candidate won 5% off from Biden's 2020, you would win the state of Texas in Central Texas alone.
And Dallas would be very easy to run. Like, again, going back to my hypothetical Foo Fighters, some celebrity in Obama, you put him at the American Airlines Center, which is immediately accessible by the DART, the Dallas Area Rapid Transit System, and people can go down and see the Foo Fighters. I have the Democrats pay for it for free. For free and $5 to ride the rail system, and maybe you even give a big speech about how mass transit's super cool or whatever. I mean, make it a big to-do. But you have to be kind of mindful in the effort here. Or the alternative strategy is you run some sort of outsider firebrand like Trump, who people would say to me would be impossible to win, and then you got a guy like Trump and he does win. So,
I
there's different
think
models.
you got a guy like Trump who does win because what happened. By the way, let us not forget that in both elections, 2016 and 2024, you weren't talking about a majority of the popular vote. Now, that's okay. You can say the same about Clinton. Clinton's friend was Perot. I don't know if he was his friend in 96, but in 92, obviously, I still think Clinton wins without him. but just purely he didn't win the popular vote. So, you know, in 2016, the unstated role of those third parties, um, Gary Johnson, huge. I mean, this was I forget the number of millions of votes, but
He
decent
was
number.
doing pretty decent, and he would have been really damaging, like if he hadn't had the Aleppo meltdown thing.
Yeah, but he was enough that he takes votes out. That is somebody to vote for when you don't like the two. The two are ugly. So what Trump has always been able to do is to, first of all, he gets anywhere from, I mean, this is almost unheard of in politics. He gets anywhere from 10 to 20% of people who dislike him. They go into the polls, I don't like this guy pulling that lever. What is some of it? A good chunk of it is we have them in New Jersey, the traditional Republican vote. They are going to the poll. They're going to vote for the candidate. If you give me Nikki Haley, I will pull the lever. If you give me Donald Trump, I will pull the lever. I don't want to hear it, and I don't want to hear anything from the dummies, that kind of thing. You have that. So some of these people don't like. So he's realized that it's kind of like, I hate to go to football, but real quick, it's what the whole nation, except for New England, suffered from under the Patriots' domination for so many years. They will beat you any way they can. In different ways, they'll beat you. If you're good at one thing, we'll beat you at something else. So in the case of the LA Rams game, I believe it was, it's okay, you want to slow the game. You want to slow the game down. We're not going to score much. Tom Brady can hand off. He can hand off, and we'll run the ball. If you are going to be the Atlanta Falcons and you're going to dance around, we're going to wait till you get tired. And when you get tired in the fourth quarter, we're going to win then. Beware of, I would say for Democrats, beware of this thing. He'll win in an election against Kamala Harris. He won in an election against Hillary Clinton. There were two different types of wins, but he finds a way to win. But usually it's involving that the environment is also shifted, i.e. there's
Right, yeah, like the
a third
environment,
party.
yeah, and the environment favors him actually subtextually. Like I would argue that the environment favored Trump in 2016. I would certainly argue that against Harris, the environment actually favored Trump because he had an already built-in media structure. Harris is this late arrive, airdrop in spare tire candidate. And Trump is a known quantity who is the former president. And you might go, but Chris, he was twice impeached. But Chris, X, Y, and Z. And I'd go, it doesn't matter to any of his people. Like none of that stuff matters. It's all about name recognition. And he had massive name recognition advantage over.
Well, first of all, the
Harris.
trial in New York helped him, no doubt in my mind. Trial
Some
in New
people
York.
still thought Joe Biden was running for president on election day. This is.
Well, this was my point that I do.
Yeah,
believe
name
they should have
recognition
just.
it's not. I wouldn't say it's everything, but boy, you tell me who's up in name recognition. If they're up by 10%, I'm telling you who's winning the election.
Here's the hill that would die on in that election. I would have just simply said, yeah, we get it. We're putting him in a Rose Garden strategy. He's running things in Oval Office. Since none of you Democrats telling us Biden can't be the nominee are saying he should step down from the presidency, we're going to do a Rose Garden. And the principal campaigner of our ticket will be the vice president. You know what that is? Absolutely no change except that Biden's top, Harris is the bottom. You run the election. Now, die on that hill. I
And
know
then you
people are
just hand
saying,
it off to her afterwards.
and I would just be transparent about it because I do think you should be transparent with the American people. Like, look, it isn't, yes, our opponents and some people are hyperventilating, in my opinion, over he can't do the job now. There isn't a single Democrat who said that. So what they're saying is he can't do it for 4 years. Okay, be transparent. Just say, this is the plan. We got the vice president. We won the primaries. It's the party. We're going to have the convention would have been unifying. He would have gone into September, and yeah, you roll the dice a little, but Trump ain't always good in debates necessarily either.
Right.
He would have
he
been
very
compared
theoretical.
against June. I think it could only get better. That's my look. It's not a beautiful scenario. Nothing. I don't think you had much of So that's what I think. But my only argument to the Harris didn't have enough time thing is, well, actually, I think the reverse. It was too much time. If the election was held in September,
Yeah, okay. I'll grant you this. If Harris had been airdropped in late August, like if they had
right?
essentially, you want to go pro wrestling on this, you have Biden do the convention, then you have a heartrending medical event that sidelines him, and with tears in his eyes, he resigns the presidency, or he
Yeah.
resign. Actually, this is important. In this narrative, he resigns the presidency with tears in his eyes. My fellow Americans, I can no longer do this job. I must hand it off to Kamala Harris. She's going to be a fantastic candidate, and then Harris just has to close the deal in the final 2 months. I think she could have won. You're right. I think she could have won a flash candidacy because even her initial polling numbers kind of suggested she had a chance against Trump if the election happened quickly.
Well, first of all, you would that changes a lot for me because that is actually a strategy that could have worked. Is that she's not the incumbent president, first of all, and second of all, instead of having run for something, she was in effect the weight of the presidency is upon me, that whole traditional thing. You
Yes.
would, I know everyone's going to argue and say, no, they would have saw it as fake. Right? Oh, no, no. As all
No,
the critics,
I'm sorry, they wouldn't. Like, based off
they would.
everything I've seen in the last 10 years, there's
People
been a
like
lot of
when a
fakes.
person is, it's, I didn't, you did choose it because you ran for VP and you were going to run again. So I get that part. But you didn't choose to be president right now, and the office is thrust upon you. So that is a great point because I think that would have been a win regardless of the time frame. I think that a President Harris running as president first, because here's another thing is you had various world events happen during that time.
And people know who the president is, right? Like, actually, the name
Well, they got to
recognition
interview the
value.
president. So now you
Yeah,
got
the
the news
name
media.
recognition value of being the president goes way up versus being candidate for president.
Oh, no, you got the news media. They have to go interview him and then
Right.
interview the candidate, and people are confused. So you'd have one person. Now, I think,
Some
first of
guy goes
all,
into the bars
Biden
like
wasn't
President
down with
Biden.
that.
Yeah, right.
Biden
No,
wasn't
Biden
down with
wasn't down
that.
with that. No, his ego was
Second of all,
never gonna let him.
I don't. That's you know what that right there is? A bold plan, Chris. And you know what the Democratic Party doesn't do? A bold plan.
They don't
Chris.
do bold. And you know what voters want in this? Going back
A
to why is
bold
Trump?
plan.
They like bold. That's
Yeah.
why they like Trump. Trump's a bold
Risky.
flavor.
Right.
He will literally say, like, I mean, he will say, like, not just a lie, but like a really bold lie. Like, nobody ever knew anything about magnets launching airplanes off of naval ships, right? Like, I mean, he doesn't just lie a little bit. He goes for the big lies.
It's
like,
politics. There is an
Yeah,
entertainment.
people
There
like that.
always has been, and give them a little sizzle. There always has been this element, and so of course you don't.
That's like my biggest thought on Democratic politics. Like, would I like to see them, policy wise, move further, in more what I consider radical directions? Sure.
So the other challenge, if people were even thinking about it, I got to get there's a journalist guy, Bill, that I can't get his name. He's very good friends with Matt Lewis.
Bill Scare. Bill Scare.
Scare.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh.
He-
Bill is sort of like the anti-Chris in terms of political thinking.
The Antichrist. Oh yeah, absolutely.
No, the anti-Chris, not the anti-Christ, the anti-Chris.
Oh no, he's not the anti. Yeah, he's the.
No,
he's
I'm not calling.
much-
He seems like a very nice guy. We could not be less aligned as
If we
human
drew a
beings.
chart,
Yeah.
Christ, Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah,
No,
I wouldn't be particularly. Yeah, but I'm
he's
trying.
an angry moderate. He's an angry moderate. So the had this exact theory. I haven't heard anyone else voice it. Why not make Harris president if you're going to do this? Why not make Harris president? Because here's the wishy-washy thing you were saying. Biden's just kind of a little bit not able to do the job.
Right.
But here's the problem, Biden would have had trouble going along, but then again, you pressured him to do what he did. Maybe you could pressure him to do the whole thing. You could have done it 2 weeks later for a second news event that would take it away from, because she lost that in October. Trump owned October, McDonald's, everything, the rally in Madison Square Garden. He had an answer for everything. She had an answer for nothing.
Her campaign didn't really have much to go on. And then we get into, October was very bad for her because she didn't even make a meaningful break from like Biden's policies on Israel, which did hurt her in terms of turning out her people. You might go, well, that's not going to change hearts and minds, Chris. I go, no, but if you are looking at a lot of lefties and liberals who are at best tenuous on Kamala Harris, having a moment of rock-ribbed progressivism in October actually probably would have done her a fine service in terms of turning out votes.
I think so.
Yeah, versus turning off votes.
Because the argument is you're going to scare people, but you're running up against Trump's going to say things that'll see. So that's where Democrats have to adjust.
Well, and Trump can't really decide how he feels on Israel, right? Like that's actually not. I mean, if we're kind of pulling the camera out strategy-wise, Israel's not a terrible place for the Democrats to be against Trump, just in the sense of Trump goes all over the map on Israel. Some days they're causing the war in Iran. Some days nobody likes them anymore. Some days they're our best friend. And we must
How do you win Michigan? He won Michigan.
And we must protect them. No, I know, right? Yeah.
He won Michigan by appealing to certain counties that are have a large Muslim population because they were mad at Biden. And so they do that argument in those counties. He'd meet with mayors. It's an issue that divides, but it was all gain politically for the GOP because they were the out of party, people were angry. There was a group that was angry over U.S. policy.
But it's her as the sort of non-president running against Joe Biden effectively, like where Kamala Harris was effectively positioned. This is actually a place where she could create meaningful divide against the standing president and explain why we need her and not someone else.
Yeah, and I think she didn't do enough of that. No. Definitely didn't do that. And
Dude,
you always have to.
It's a really tough rhetorical position. I think if you're the VP and you are running to get the presidency after the president, you have to find some sort of signature issue to
talk about. I was talking about verbal acuity in podcasts before. That's the reason, not in my opinion, to really win the election, but to get the right to run a campaign and say something meaningful, because people are going to ask it, and you look like an idiot if you're not saying anything. Traditionally, historically, you're tied to the president's administration anyway. So if the Republicans were somehow, if they would, because I think there's a couple of scenarios. They could run Vance. I don't think Trump likes Vance very much.
But man, it doesn't feel like it, right? Like it does not feel. It does not feel like he likes him.
He likes winners, but Vance could win him back because Trump has no permanence with that. If somebody's a winner next week,
brought him a political scalp. You know what I mean? Like Vance needs to draw a little bit of political blood on somebody.
And there could be stuff coming. I really do think there's going to be an upward for Vance. So like anyone who's writing him up. However, it could be in the Republican primaries where this is done, and you either get a more MAGA than MAGA, you get a Vance, whatever we want to just, he's with Trump and the administration, or you get I'm just with Trump kind of guy, or you could get a more non-Trump Republican, perhaps.
But Trump has really even positioned himself politically to where he is still the political kingmaker for 28. And I don't think there's a way to win the nomination without Trump giving his blessing to you. You're not going to win without the Pope's blessing. And that's what Trump has really effectively
the only possibility is after midterms, and watch 2027 with that. Now, listen, we've been talking a while. Is there anything that we should have talked about that we did not?
I don't know. Honestly, I will leave that to the listeners. I'm thrilled. It's been great to be on the air here with all y'all again, sharing some thoughts. If there's other stuff you want to hear me talk about in the future, leave comments below the Patreon link here that Bruce has posted so that we can get around to them. I'm sure I will bubble back up again sometime during election season. It doesn't seem like a far-fetched bet. Just don't go on Kalshi and make any bets to try to move the markets on this stuff. Wait until I get my bets in first, please. I want to be like George Santos here and cash in, baby.
And I got to show you my axe, my current axe.
Ooh, what you rocking here?
This is a
a banjo.
Well, it's a particular type. This is a 6-string.
6-stringer banjo.
So it's like a banjitar type thing, you know.
Fun. So I have been playing. When I moved in my new house here, I unpacking stuff, rediscovered my 12-string from college, which I would pull out and tune up for you. But there was a flyer in my dorm hallway, my second semester of college. It was like 12-string, $75, and I went down. I met the guy. I was like, "Really? You're selling a 12-string for $75?" He was like, "Yeah, I tried to learn how to play guitar, and I tried to learn on a 12-string." And I was like, "Well, that was an unbelievable mistake. You know, it's just like trying to start a new video game on super hard." Right?
12 strings are hard.
They're horrible.
In college, everybody thinks they can do it.
Yeah,
you know?
right. Yeah, so I ended up grabbing that. Initially, I hated the thing because it was such a pain to tune and everything. And it didn't quite have the best action or whatever. It's kind of just, it's been putzing around with me for the last couple of decades. I pulled it out and dusted it off. All of a sudden, after the move out here to New Mexico, the neck reset magically, and now it plays like a dream, and it's like a super fun thing to play for me.
Well, this has been basically for a year or so. Has been my only, you know. I just shift.
Did you build it? Now, did it start off
as
as
a Gretsch? This is a Gretsch.
Okay.
It's a specific model. I mean, the original banjos, so the old Dixie Time or the old Dixieland or the old ragtime jazz, they would have used 6.
Type of instruments are very, very built for laying in and doing really kind of aggressive strums and rhythms and that sort of thing, and I love that. You saw at the beginning here. I purchased because I've never owned one and I love it. I have a Selmer McAfee style guitar here, and these were made like this was designed like in the 30s or whatever. These type of guitars were designed in the 30s. This is not built in the 30s or whatever, but I love the bright, like kind of percussive quality that sits in these type of instruments versus like a standard steel.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that I would say, a 6-string banjo is a guitar.
Right,
So
I kind of feel that, right?
Yeah, you're not getting the entire range of, like, I used to spend, if I have a banjo, and I would just do... You can do like the boil on cabbage down stuff, but it's a little more
the elegance is in the simplicity. It's kind of like the ukulele, right? Like the elegance of the 4-stringy sort of treble tenory instruments is that they have very simple shapes. And so they allow for very easy comping, and they also sit higher in the mix, so they cut nicely too. But like normally you can usually just, like on a ukulele, I had the revelation of like most chords are basically just like the D shape on the guitar, or D major, D minor, and then just moving your middle finger around. There's a real zen to the simplicity of the chord voicings on the 4-stringed instruments, and when you add in the extra strings back, it's like, why have a 6-string ukulele at that point? You just want a nylon string guitar.
Yeah, this works slightly differently, but I could see a lot of it like...
You're still tuned E, A, D, G, B, E, right?
Yeah. I would still do... And so you do end up a little bit with a buzzy E, like, so it can be a little buzzy.
Right, which I think is why when they did the banjo originally, why you don't have that, is like the D, G, A, like tuning's more conducive to that.
Yeah, you can do, but I still think like A works really well, almost, it almost gives an electric type,
Does it plug in?
Not without a pickup.
Okay, you should get like a little clip-on pickup or whatever, and just vibe it out, because I bet you that'd probably be pretty cool. I think Gretsch makes like a what's it, like the resonator style pickup or whatever. I'm thinking about getting one for my guitar too. Same idea. And we could always, if you want, one of these times, circle back to my music history, can beat up your politics, and I can dazzle people with my esoteric knowledge of various bands and stuff. Spieling. I mean, like, I guess kind of an homage to you. I did like a 4-part series for my students this past year on the Beatles. So I ended up putting together like an 8-hour presentation on them, going through like their entire music history or whatever. So if you ever want me to come back on here and spiel about the Beatles or something, I can do that next time we're talking.
Yeah, well, these listener talks, they're pretty, pretty open, just like all the time. And, whatever, if you in turn start your podcast up and wish to have a guest on,
Man, I'm really thinking about it. I think it's probably going to be a YouTube thing. I think that's the move for a relaunching show, is to just come back and do like YouTube content. So no, it's certainly, it is being thought about, is what I'm saying. And look, for those of you who have missed me, hopefully you got a good 90 minutes worth of content.
I've done some of them, and I plan to do a few more. I have found that it's hit or miss, like with the YouTube. Like, I have gotten a couple things that have exploded, strange things.
The algorithm has actual walls. I learned a little bit about this. So, like, what happens is you put out a video and it gets A/B tested at a micro sample. So, like 1,000 views or 10,000 views, and if you don't get enough engagement there, then it just kind of gets memory hold, and that's why your stuff kind of goes dead.
So this is fueling controversy, because it's the most controversial one. I think it was about tariffs that really exploded. Woodrow Wilson. Yeah, so you're seeing controversial subjects.
Woodrow Wilson would be a good one to get kind of to blow out. I mean, look, this is in its own way an obvious problem, right? Like the idea that only controversial topics can get engagement on YouTube sort of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And you get a narrower and narrower bandwidth of what actually qualifies as controversial topics, because it gets self-selecting.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Anything that's like, if you're looking for engagement, it's a quicker route to engagement to people are going to say, I hate this, than but anyway, so doing a little bit more. I too, if I was sort of starting now, I'd probably still do a podcast, but I used to be a radio guy, so
yeah, right. Like there's usually like some part of me. Well, I like what could have been 10 years ago, because I loved the part of the job where I would go and watch all these and find all of these random video clips for all y'all, clip them up into the show, find random audio excerpts and stuff like the nuggets, right? Like putting together the audio was some of the best part of it, and now I just feel like the current mediums don't allow for that format of radio magic, and that makes me a little sad.
Yeah, you could. I do see some. After all of these years in today's environment, I'm seeing the short, because a lot of the points to be made are short, and I can do it with history too, because you can make just one quick thing. Like, do you know? One of my top videos is this hidden thing about the 25th Amendment, which is basically that Congress could appoint a body of doctors instead of the cabinet. So you don't need the cabinet. Congress could appoint a body of doctors to decide the 25th. They just haven't, and they'll never get, you do need the president.
And that's like a really cool fact, that everything like that. For me, it's just like, I miss the artsy fartsy element of the medium.
I know.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe
that was podcasting, and it always will be for me. We're not supposed to be doing super tight. You do have to introduce.
Right, it's not supposed to be radio. No. Like going back and bringing it full circle. When we first started, radio was. I mean, I did radio classes in my teenage years. Like, I was interested, I've always been interested in this enough that, like, I did, like, a radio summer camp and all of that stuff. And they had, like, very tight rules, and we had to make our own radio program. And, like, you really needed to nail your timestamps and everything like that. And I always felt like having all that time crunchy stuff really limited how loose and in the moment you could get with the art, because you have to always be looking at the clock and thinking about, like, am I going to wrap up what's happening here on the beat or not?
I used to I did a little bit of commercial radio. I did a country station of all things in Jersey, and you're limited in what you could play, you're limited in what you could say.
And so, like, this medium was really liberating to me. It was,
it
okay,
was very
cool, you come on and vibe, say your stuff.
Yeah, I really actually ended up not liking radio very much. And people said, oh, you'd be great at it. Well, and it's so segmented, so perfect. And then I recall recently Howard Stern talking about how stressful it was that he had to win, not just like, oh, I have the best ratings this hour. He had to win every 10 minutes. Every 10 minutes, and his producer was watching, like, why were you down in this 10 minutes? I mean, no wonder he had, like, some issues and stuff. I mean, you have to, like, you're going to go crazy.
You're thinking about this in such like a weird way, whereas, like, I just remember when I finally settled in on the medium of, okay, like, back when I had, like, the closet, right? Like, I'm my old apartment in Dallas. Like, I would be in my closet. I remember the first time I had done, like, a really good rant that I'd gotten done, and I got it all on audio, and I'm like, damn, that was good. That's what I'm trying to do here is, like, get in here, get some really good audio, like, kind of like the way I understood Dan Carlin did his stuff. And then we edit down this really good audio into an even more distilled product. And then if we have some more stuff to say, we build it back in. But, like, I don't know, the first time I did that, it felt like, oh, this is what has drawn me to this medium. Like this is the thing. I do miss that, but I bringing it all back around. I've been getting more questions. Yo, where you at? What you doing, Chris? What are your thoughts about this, that, and the third? Where do you think things are going these days?
Absolutely.
What have you been doing?
I've gotten a few of them. We're glad to be able to answer the question a little bit. I know you're out.
Leave questions if there are still more things you want to hear me spiel on going ahead here. Please go ahead, leave questions. Bruce will get them back to me.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for coming on, Chris. We love having you. This will air pretty quick, and I know listeners will be excited about it.
You just wrap that trouble up in dreams, then you dream those troubles away.